Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military with Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. On this video we're going to discuss the situation in the Iranian-Israeli conflict, and we're going to discuss the situation in the Special Military Operation Zone. First, let's talk about Iran and Israel, where both the Israelis and the Iranians continue bombing and attacking each other. When talking about the territory of Iran during the previous 24 hours, we got a few very interesting updates. First of all, according to information we have, several explosions were recorded in the most northeastern part of the state, which is very important because if we increase the numbers of updates, let's say since the beginning of the previous week, we would see the main numbers of icons that took place in the central and in the western part of the state of Iran, and we haven't received almost anything from the northeastern part of the state. But now we see that most likely the Israelis don't have problems if they need to attack every single part and every single square kilometer of this Mid-East country. Another important thing is that during the previous 24 hours, the main updates were related, of course, to this place, to this position, to the central part of Iran in the vicinity of the settlement by the name of Qom. We are talking, of course, about these territories, about these rocks, and so on. So what is this? This is Qom uranium enrichment plant, and this is currently the focal point of Israeli activities, and this is the focal point of Iranian defense system. So according to information we have, and according to Israeli intelligence, the Iranians are trying to enrich their arms, their, let's say, fuel for the nuclear weapons exactly in this area. And this nuclear enrichment plant is located below the surface more than 90 meters. So that is why the Israelis understand if the Iranians continue doing things that they are doing right now, sooner or later they will be able to get the first nuclear weapons. So that is why they're trying to do everything they can with the purpose to not allow the Iranians to get this weapon. And during the previous 24 hours, according to information we have, the Israelis carried out another attack in this area, and after this attack there was an earthquake. Israeli Air Forces strikes on the ground nuclear facility at Fordow. A 2.5 magnitude earthquake was recorded near the city of Qom. No official data has been released yet. So this is very important because according to information we have, the Israelis don't have the weapon that can penetrate the surface so deep. So they have some bombs that can penetrate the surface for more than 30 or 40 meters, but not for more than 90 meters. And once again, the Iranian plants, enrichment plants, are located 90 meters below the surface. So there's just one country in the Western world who can do this, and we're talking, of course, about the United States of America. And during the previous 24 hours, we got lots of reports that most likely the United States of America will be involved in this situation. Trump says it's possible US could get involved in Israel-Iran conflict. President Donald Trump told ABC News that it's possible we could get involved in the ongoing conflict between Israel and Iran. And we need to understand that the main purpose and the main task of the United States of America would be not the bombardments of the entire Iran, but to support Israel, of course, and to attack, first of all, as a first target, to attack this Qom uranium enrichment plant, to understand whether the United States of America have enough of forces, have enough of power, manpower, firepower to destroy this plant and not to allow the Iranians to use it. At the same time, we understand that, of course, this is not going to be a very easy trip for the United States of America. And first of all, it will take time. It will take several days before the United States of America are able to bring additional forces in this region. For example, today we got reports that aircraft carriers Nimitz and its task group are currently en route to the Middle East, where 3 aircraft carriers like Carl Vinson, like Nimitz, and like Prince of Wales will be deployed to the region as well. So now the United States of America are trying to concentrate another strike group with the purpose, most likely, first of all, to destroy this let's say enrichment plant. And basically we are entering the second phase of this Iran-Israeli conflict. We are talking about the first real battle, the battle by the name of Qom uranium enrichment plant. You know that this is very important because, for example, we had a lot of, and we still have a lot of battles, let's say, in the special military operation zone. We had the Battle of Mariupol, we had the Battle of Zaporozhye, we had the Battle of Bakhmut. We are about to start discussing the situation in Konstantinovka. So many battles took place there, and every single battle is very important for both sides, for the Russians and for the Ukrainians. And when talking about Iranian conflict, we are at the same stage. We are about at the first battle. This is not the battle like the Battle of Mariupol. We will not see any ground operation. This is going to be a battle of aircrafts and air defense systems. But the United States of America, the Israel and the United States of America are tasked, first of all, to destroy this uranium enrichment plant. And Iran and its allies will try to do everything they can to protect this position, to protect this place. And obviously, the next stages of this war will depend, of course, on the results of this battle between two parties. Of course, Iran is not going to be alone in this battle. We continue receiving reports that the Pakistanis are going to send weapons and arms, and the Chinese as well. Let's discuss this in details. Reliable Balogh news outlets report that the large containers from Pakistan into Iran earlier today via Balochistan province carrying missiles and military equipment. Eyewitness noticed unusual transportation activities on the border with Pakistan in the areas Ridman, Saravan and Taiftan entering into Iran. Another important statement made by the Pakistanis that Iran media quoting their senior military official making an outrageous claim on television. Pakistan said if Israel conducts a nuclear strike on Iran, we will also fire nuclear missiles at Israel. This is a very important statement. And probably the third day in a row, the Chinese are sending more and more aircrafts, air cargoes to the territory of Iran. Probably the Chinese are bringing additional missiles and probably some air defense systems. So now we see and we understand the shapes of both coalitions on the side of Israel and on the side of Iran. And today we got another very important statement, another very important article. According to information we have, the Iranian Parliament has approved a strategic partnership agreement with Russia. This was reported by the Islamic Republic's embassy in the Russian Federation. I would like to remind you that the same probably strategic partnership agreement Iran has with China, and now this agreement was not just signed but came to legal power with the Russian Federation. So most likely the Russian Federation will also join this game, but a bit later, probably either during the battle for this enrichment plan or a bit later. Anyway, let's wait and see what is going to be next, but there are a few important things that we also would like to discuss with you about this nuclear facility. First of all, today Iran made a very interesting statement. Iran urges Palestinians to stay away from Israeli nuclear sites for security reasons amid possible escalation. So obviously, if the Israeli coalition attack the Iranian nuclear facilities, most likely Iran will attack the Israelis' nuclear facilities. And another important update about the situation is coming from Ukraine, because today Zelensky also made lots of very interesting statements about the situation. Zelensky said that Russia is preparing strikes against Ukrainian nuclear energy. Zelensky following a meeting with the military and security forces. Russia is planning further attacks against energy, which may not be less noticeable to the world due to the focus on the situation in the Middle East, he complains. And obviously this is going to happen because once again, if we return back to Iran, there's just one state in the world who can attack these facilities, and we're talking about the United States of America. So basically, the United States of America will attack nuclear facility of Russian ally, which means that this is going to be something like a precedent in the world when Russians will be able to do the same. If United States of America attacks nuclear facilities of Iran, this means that Russia has possibilities and the right to attack nuclear facilities of Ukraine. And if the United States of America do this, obviously Russia will do the same. So that is why Zelensky is afraid of the situation, because he understands if Russia do this, then most likely the entire Ukraine can collapse within probably months or something like this without electricity and with a nuclear problem somewhere in in the western part of Ukraine. Anyway, let's wait and see what is going to be next, but obviously the situation is going to be worsening and worsening. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the northeastern part of the Ukraine, about the Sumy region, where the Russians continue their offensive operation. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians, according to information we have, managed to improve their positions once again in the village of Yunakiivka. The sources reported that the Russians introduced additional forces in this area, and the Russians are planning to begin the second wave of attack in the near future. We're talking about Russian attack towards the second defense layer, and as for the previous 24 hours, the Russians bombed the village of Yunakiivka, the southern part, more than 40 times with different air bombs, so which means that most likely Ukrainian positions were reduced to ruins and the Russians are about to continue offensive. Furthermore, we got reports that 60 settlements in Sumy region have been completely evacuated. In general, 60% of residents have already left dangerous areas, so which means that the Ukrainians understand that the Russians will continue offensive until they are able to establish as many control over as many as possible territories of the Sumy region itself. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Liman direction, where the Russians also continue their offensive operation. According to information we have, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians managed to improve their positions to the north of the settlement of Redkadub. The Russians took under control several tree lines in this area and managed to shorten the distances to the villages of Glushenkova and to the village of Novomir. So several tree lines were taken. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians this morning on the 16th of June of 2025 began their assault operation in the direction of the settlement of Zelёnaya Dolina. I would like to remind you that the Russians managed to cut some cauldron this village several days ago, and most likely this morning the Ukrainians in this area have become completely exhausted, so that is why the Russians began offensive. Most likely the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back. During the previous days, the Ukrainians made several attempts to counterattack this area with the purpose to restore control over these territories, but the Russians destroyed every single vehicle and tank that Ukrainians sent for these purposes. In this video we can see how another Ukrainian tank was destroyed after Ukrainians were trying to counterattack in the area of Zelёnaya Dolina. Now let's discuss the situation in the area of Siversk. According to information we have, the Russians managed to maintain their logistic between the villages of Verkhnekamenska and Ivanodarivka. We've been talking a lot about this probably since the beginning of May, that the Russians would try to take under control this road between Ivanodarivka and Verkhnekamenska. Yesterday, for example, we adjusted the map in this area based on the video that was published by the Russians, where we can see how Russian soldiers were clearing trenches and fortifications of the armored forces of Ukraine. And today we got report that the Russians finished the battle for the road, and currently the Russians have all possibilities to use this road for logistic purposes between the villages of Ivanodarivka, Verkhnekamenska, and probably the mainland. So this is very important logistic road for further offensives that the Russians are planning to carry out in the very near future. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Konstantinovka direction. During the previous 24 hours, during the previous night, we got the most important updates exactly from this area. And first of all, and very important, we have colored finally the central and the eastern part of the city of Chasiv Yar in Russian favor. So, for example, this is the situation by the end of the 15th of June of 2025. We had this gap, we have so many territories as a contested area or the gray zone, because we haven't received anything about this almost since the beginning of the battle for the city of Chasiv Yar, and today we got at least 2 geolocations to the west of this pocket, which confirms Russian control over this territory. So this is exactly the video we're talking about. This video was published by the Ukrainian sources of the 24th Mechanized Brigade, and here we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russians in this area with FPV drones. This is 1 minute and 33 seconds video where we can see lots of episodes how Ukrainians were attacking Russians in this point and in this point. Based on this video, we have adjusted this pocket completely. So now we have no doubts that the Russians are about to finish the battle for the city of Chasiv Yar itself. Just probably 15% left for the Russians. At the same time, the Russians continue their offensive operation in the most southeastern part of this area of the Konstantinovka offensive direction. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians managed to improve their positions in this pocket by taking under control additional strongholds, and the most important, the Russians managed to cross the Siversk Donetsk-Donbass area canal and to establish control over Ukrainian positions on the Ukrainian side, which means that Ukrainians, due to this situation, most likely decided to evacuate their soldiers from this area in the direction of the settlement of Belagora. So due to this situation, we expect that by the morning of the by the end of the 17th of June of 2025, this pocket will be taken by the Russians completely. When talking about the Konskliban-Bitska reserve, during the previous night we haven't received anything special, but the most important things are coming from the western part of Yablunovka. The Russian forces managed to introduce additional forces in this area, and the Russians are trying to get the initiative back in their hands. I would like to remind you that during the previous days we had several changes on the ground in Ukrainian favor in the most western part of the settlement. Based on the video that was published yesterday by the Russians, we have adjusted almost the entire western part of Yablunovka in Ukrainian favor. And today we got another video where we can see how Russians were attacking Ukrainians in this area, and based on the fresh and let's say recent video, we have adjusted the map this time in Russian favor. So the Russians improved their positions along N32 road, and the Russians improved their positions in the western part of Yablunovka. Now, as we understand, the Russians are trying to establish complete control over this territory. This is very important company stronghold. The Russians are trying to outflank these positions from the north and from the west and from the south. As for the South Donetsk direction, currently the main clashes are taking place for the village of Zaporozhye. The Russians continue their offensive operation in this area, trying to shorten the distances and to start this offensive as soon as possible. As for the previous 24 hours, as for the previous night, we haven't received anything special, just a lot of videos how the Russians were bombing and attacking Ukraine positions with artillery and drones. So it seems that the Russians began the artillery preparation, and we are waiting for another offensive operation that should start in the very near future. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.